Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. In this one we're going to be looking at a wildcard draft for game week 12. Now I'm not on wildcard myself this week, but I know that many people are using it this week. I think it's a great week to use it. There's quite a few fixture swings. So this is the team that I would be going for, or roughly anyway. This is roughly the team that I'd be going for if I were using it this week. Before we get into that, if you want all of the latest FPL information for every week sent to your email inbox, then check out the link in the description, bradmayerfpl.com. I send out a game week preview every single week, which has everything you need to know in it. So it's free newsletter. If you don't like it, unsubscribe. But let's get into the wildcard draft. So goalkeepers are on screen. If you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know that I hate spending money on goalkeepers. I will almost always go as cheap as possible. So Fabianski is on the bench. He is probably one of the very few players that would be completely locked on in my wildcard team this week. Obviously he scored 9 points in the week just gone. I did actually have him in my team and I played him, so that was brilliant. I think that he'd be a lock. I think that at 4 million he's just great value. I can't see him being the number one choice all season. Don't quite know what's going on with Areola. I think he did have an injury. Well, so a few weeks ago in the Man United game, Areola was on the bench and Fabianski started. I think that was just a case of Areola not being great recently, so Fabianski started. After that, Areola's not been in the squad since for the last 2 games. And he's not in the France squad, which he usually is. So I think he does have some sort of injury. Have no idea how bad that is, but I wouldn't worry about it too much because, to be honest, the second goalkeeper that you're going to pick is good enough to play anyway. It's just useful that Fabianski's there if he is going to play games. But the second goalkeeper I would probably go for is Verbruggen. Now, Brighton have had terrible fixtures over the last couple. They've played Liverpool and they've played Man City. So wouldn't have wanted to play him in those last couple of weeks, but going forward they have a great run of fixtures. So I really like having at least one Brighton defender in the team, and to be honest, their cheap defenders aren't the best. I mean, Lewis Dunk's injured at the moment. Even if he wasn't injured, then he's just a bit of a boring option at centre-back. Van Hecke as well, another kind of slightly more boring option at centre-back. The full-backs are a difficult position to really think about. I mean, Kadioglu is very attacking and looks kind of great, but he's just got injured himself. Minutes-wise, all of the fullbacks you're not kind of sure of. So I think that Verbruggen is quite a nice, safe way into the Brighton defence, and the manager's talked great things about Verbruggen. So I'd be surprised if he's dropped. So this is kind of where I'd go. I do see the appeal in going for Raya, to be honest. The Arsenal defence is still the best in the league. Maybe Liverpool is up there as well, to be honest, but the Arsenal defence is still very, very good, and they've got good fixtures now. So I definitely want at least one. I'd want a piece of the Arsenal defence in some way. I think that David Raya is quite a good way into it, given that he's 0.5 or maybe 0.4 million cheaper than the likes of Gabriel and Saliba, but to be honest, I'd still want to go cheap in goal, I think, but I wouldn't be opposed to Raya anyway. So let's get on to the defenders. Okay, so we've just mentioned him. Gabriel is also in this team. I think that he is worth the extra over Raya just for the goal threat that he provides. He and Arsenal in general are ridiculously dangerous from corners. So I definitely want him in the team. There is an option where you could double up with him and Raya or him and Saliba, but in this draft I haven't, just because I think that the rest of the team takes a bit too much of a hit if you go with 2 more expensive players in defence. But let's talk about the others. They're actually all left backs, which I've just realised now, but I still think they're all great individually. I mean, not all of them are, in fact none of them are particularly, I would say, locked. I mean, Ait Nouri is maybe the closest to someone that I definitely want in. There's great options at they're all around 4.5. Some are slightly under 4.5, some are slightly over 4.5. But it's kind of more of a structure thing. I mean, I'd want to go with one expensive defender in Gabriel And then the rest of them, I think, pretty cheap, given that you'll need money for the forward line and the midfield. So I like having the players that are kind of around 4.5. And like I just mentioned, I'd much rather go for kind of attacking fullbacks than centre-backs in their teams. So like I mentioned with Brighton, Dunk and Van Hecke are just kind of a little bit more boring as options because they haven't necessarily got the attacking threat from open play. So I've got Lewis Hall. I think he's 4.3 million at the moment, and he seems to have locked down that left-back spot at Newcastle now. At the start of the season, we thought that Dan Burn was going to play there a little bit. We thought that Lloyd Kelly might get some games there, and he did get some games there, to be fair. But now it seems that Lewis Hall has locked down the spot. He's played really well recently. Got an England call-up, of course. And he plays pretty attacking. I mean, Livramento is potentially more attacking the other side, but Lewis Hall's a bit cheaper. So I think he is a pretty safe option. And to be honest, we're going with 5 playing defenders anyway. So we don't need them all to be completely nailed. So I think that Lewis Hall's a good pick. Newcastle have got some fantastic fixtures. So I like him. Luca Dean has been fantastic this season. One of the best left-backs in the league, to be honest. If it weren't for Gvardiol, I'd maybe say that Luca Dean's been the best left-back in the league. He's been incredible. He's played his way... He's definitely the first-choice left-back at Aston Villa. There were some question marks before the season started because they got Maatsen, but Luca Dean is definitely the first choice, and he's been brilliant. He's on some set pieces as well. So he definitely has the attacking threat, and Aston Villa also have some nice fixtures coming up. So I think he's a great option. Ait Nouri is on the bench this week as well. We all know about him. Wolves' defence isn't exactly robust or anything like that. I wouldn't expect loads of clean sheets, albeit they did keep one in Game Week 11. But you have him more for the attacking returns. And he picks up some ridiculous positions. At points, he's playing as kind of part of a front three, even though he's not even playing... Well, he wasn't even playing wing-back towards the start of the season. He was in a back 4. Now he is playing as a left wing-back in a 5 at the back. He just picks up ridiculous attacking positions, so I would probably go with him. He'd be the most nailed out of all of these 4 cheaper defenders, I think. And then Kirkes from Bournemouth. He's another kind of slightly cheaper option. I think he's under 4.5 million. So, and again, you wouldn't need to play all of these every week. They can rotate in and out as and when they've got good fixtures. And Bournemouth do have some very good fixtures coming up. So I think Kirkes is good. He's played, I think, every game or almost every game this season at left back. So don't think he's too much of a minutes issue. Not like he was last season when he was kind of a minutes issue because Lloyd Kelly was at Bournemouth. He's now at Newcastle. So I do like him. He obviously got 2 assists against Man City the other week. So I just think he's a very, very good, cheap option. And all 4 of these players, as I mentioned, are fullbacks or wingbacks. So you've always got chances of attacking returns. You're not just looking for clean sheets every week, which I also quite like. Because if a team loses their clean sheet within 10-15 minutes, that's not them out of the game then. They can always get attacking returns like Kirkes did. He got 2 assists the other week. So I'd go with this structure. There are some other players you could go for. Like I do kind of like the Chelsea defence. So you could, if you wanted to go up to like a Gusto, although he'll probably potentially be rotated with James in the Christmas period, or even someone like Fofana or Cole, but they're a little bit more boring. But yeah, this is kind of what I go for. So let's go on to the midfield now. Right, so the first player we've got is Mo Salah. He is a pretty obvious one. He is, again, one of the 5, maybe or 6 players that would definitely be locked in this team. Salah, Palmer and Bomo out of the midfielders would pretty much be locked for now, I'd say. Salah is probably the best captaincy option this week. If it's not him, then it's Palmer, to be honest. So I don't think we need to go over him too much, really. He's just a great option. Saka, obviously, there's a tiny doubt over his fitness. He did go off in the game, in Game Week 11, and it didn't look too bad. But with Bukayo Saka, we never really know, to be honest. I mean, if he's not fit, then there's quite a good replacement in Bruno Fernandes. Obviously, Bruno Fernandes is one player that I've been huge on for the last couple of weeks. Even captained him in Game Week 11. in my own team. Did really well there. And it does pain me a little bit that I haven't got him in this wildcard draft. He is one player that I'd really, really want to fit in, but I'm just not sure where I'd fit him. The one option I could go for is putting him in instead of Semenyo, but that requires probably a Gabriel downgrade and downgrading one of the forwards as well. I just think it takes too much to fit him in, and I'd want Salah, Mbomo, Palmer, and if Saka's fit, then I'd want him as well, because like I mentioned, Arsenal have got some great fixtures. So Bruno Fernandes does unfortunately miss out, although if you've got a draft with him in, then I wouldn't begrudge it at all. I think he's brilliant for the next few. Semenyo, he just takes shots in every single game. I think he's second this season behind Haaland for the player of the most shots in the league. So if you take enough shots, you'll score goals, and that is exactly what he does. So for 5.7 million, I think he's an absolute bargain, given that Bournemouth have got pretty good fixtures coming up, as I mentioned with Kirkes. And then there's not much to say around Palmer and Mbomo. I mean, Mbomo's fixtures do turn a little bit from game week 14, but in game week 13, he's potentially a captain option as well, to be honest. So even if you wouldn't want him from game week 14 onwards, which there's a world where we can just hold him anyway, but I'd want him before that. So I think he'd definitely be a lock in my team. Right, so the forward line is far from locked, to be honest. I mean, the one player who's probably more locked than the others is João Pedro. He's on the bench this week, potentially. I mean, you could play him. It's not a bad fixture. But João Pedro is not necessarily guaranteed to start this week. I mean, he's not going on international duty with Brazil, so he's got a couple of weeks to kind of get fitness back after being out for a while. He obviously came on, got a goal and an assist at the weekend in game week 11. So he is fit. He just needs to maybe get some match fitness back. But the international break will help him get kind of up to speed with things anyway. And I think he's great. At 5.4 million, he is ridiculously cheap. He is probably on penalties. I think he's definitely on penalties, actually, when he plays. So he would most likely be in my team. Now, the other two options wouldn't be set. There's so many good forwards right now that you could choose from quite a few. Isak is one who you know will pretty much play 90 minutes. You know he's on penalties, I think, although Gordon could take a penalty, but most likely it'll be Isak. And Newcastle have good fixtures. As I mentioned with Hall in defence, they've got some pretty good fixtures now. They went through a tough run and that's ended. So I do like Isak quite a lot. The other option you could go for in that position is maybe Havertz, although I prefer Isak to Havertz, to be honest. The other option, though, is Nicholas Jackson. Now, Chelsea's fixtures are unbelievable, so only having Palmer from Chelsea isn't ideal. As I mentioned with the defenders, you could go Colwill, you could go Gusto, you could go Fofana, but you could also go with Nicholas Jackson. Now, the problem with him is he is on 4 yellow cards, so it could be a little bit of a problem if he does get a yellow card. Although with this setup, you should be covered with one of the defenders or the 8th attacker. Because to mention it now actually as well, Ait Nouri's also on 4 yellow cards. So you would have a couple of players that will probably be getting suspended for one game soon. But it will only be one game, and you do have 15 playing players with this squad. So you should be able to cover it fine. But I do love Jackson as an option, to be honest. And then you've got Cunha. Cunha's just brilliant for his price. Again, he's probably on penalties. There's a chance Sarabia is. But Sarabia doesn't quite get the minutes that Cunha does. And there's a chance that Cunha's just on them anyway. As we saw at the weekend, he scored a goal and he got an assist. Both fantastic. He's just absolutely brilliant. But in that slot as well, you could go a little bit more budget. You could go Raul Jimenez. I really like him. You could go Wissa, you could go Welbeck. There's plenty of good forward options. Or to be honest, you could even go 3 really cheap forwards. As I was mentioning earlier, if you wanted to take Semenyo up to someone like Bruno, you could take Isak down and Cunha down. You could even go for 3 sub 6 million forwards. You could go Welbeck, João Pedro, Raul, or you could get Strand Larsen in. There's so many good forwards that you can have a really, really budget forward line if you wanted to really, really stack the midfield. But I just think this is a little bit more well-rounded of a squad. This is kind of roughly the structure I'd go for anyway, I think. I think that, again, even if you wanted to change some of the players around, like Semenyo could be Rodgers. They've both got good fixtures, and they're both very good options at their price. So the beauty with it at the moment is that there is a lot of good options. Less so in the defence, more so in the forward line, to be honest. There's probably 8 or 10 forwards that you could pick from right now, which makes it quite interesting, and it's a good spot to be on wildcard. Because if you're not, you're probably stuck with some you don't want. You're potentially stuck with Solanke, although he's not the worst option. You potentially stuck with Calvert-Lewin. That's a really bad place to be. But yeah, this is roughly what I'd be going for, I think. So if you've got any questions, if you think I've missed anyone, or you've got any questions on your team if you're not on wildcard, or if you are on wildcard and you want to ask me anything, chuck them in the comments. If you like the video, make sure you hit subscribe. Really helps me out. So that's all for this one. I'll see you in the next one.